Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Director Cordray, could you provide specific examples of regulatory relief measures that the Bureau has already extended to small financial institutions?
Sure, and we've talked about some of them today, which is that in the mortgage market in particular, when we were required by Congress to adopt the qualified mortgage rule, what we call the ability to repay rule, we weren't required to do so, but we determined that, and I feel strongly committed to this, if we believe smaller institutions like community banks and credit unions lend responsibly, and I believe they do, and I believe data has shown that their default rates are lower. This is going back to the Congressman's point a moment ago. Their default rates are lower than other lenders, and were especially so through the crisis. Then we should try to find ways to tier our regulations such that we can encourage them to engage in that kind of lending, which is good lending and very important in our communities. And we did adopt a provision on that applied to 90+% of the community banks and credit unions in the country. We then went back, and I thought we hadn't drawn it broadly enough. I thought we should draw it even broader, because we not only want to encourage them to lend, but we want to give them some room to grow in that lending. And in fact, community banks are growing in their share of the mortgage lending market now in this past year, we have seen. And we have a proposal to expand that further. That's an example of it. We've had other provisions for regulatory relief. Annual privacy notices. We adopted a new rule to reduce those burdens on many companies. We were working toward the ATM machine sticker problem when Congress resolved it with our support as another means of regulatory relief. And where we can do things that we think relieve burden on industry without hurting consumer protection, we're willing to consider doing that. And if people have ideas in that regard, they should share them with us.
Can you give examples of the impact that the Community Bank Advisory Council has had on the Bureau's actions relating to community banks?
What the Community Bank Advisory Council, and that's another good example, we're not required to have such a body, but I thought we weren't going to be naturally hearing enough from community banks because we don't have the examination or enforcement authority of them, so we don't engage with them day to day. We did set up a Community Bank Advisory Council and a Credit Union Advisory Council, which again, we're not required to have, but I think they've been very helpful to us. And they influence our thinking. I mean, we talk to them about the work we're doing on mortgage and other things. They talk to us about what kind of operational effect those things have on them. They tell us about what kind of problems and concerns they have in the marketplace that we might not otherwise see. We spend a lot of time with them, and it's been very valuable, I think, to us. And I personally spend a lot of time sitting through those sessions. I don't just farm that out to other people. I want to hear from them directly. Again, I'm continuing to do this because I think it's very helpful, and I think it's benefited the Bureau, and I think it's benefited community banks as well.
Thank you for that response. You know, we often hear from our colleagues that a regulated entity somehow lack the requisite access to the CFPB to voice their concerns about actions taken by the CFPB, or to shape the CFPB's policymaking process outside of formal channels like the APA's notice and comment period. Could you elaborate on the ways that entities subject to the CFPB's jurisdiction can interface with the agency when they take issue with the agency's actions?
Sure. Number one is we do have these advisory councils. Second is we did set up, in response to concerns from industry, a new office that we call the Office of Financial Institutions and Business Liaison, which is the way that people in industry can interface with the Bureau and make sure they can navigate the Bureau and have their concerns heard. We meet regularly with both community bankers and separately with credit union leaders in every state when we go out and around the country. And when they come in to do their fly-ins to speak to all of you, they typically will come and speak to us as well. I remember I met with Congressman Nagebauer recently, and my folks had told me about meetings we'd had with Texas bankers in the past year. It was 5 or 6 different meetings we had had. I told him I felt like a member of the delegation. But it is something that I think is important for us to do, and we gain a lot of insight from it. And it gives them an ability to talk to us and have us hear from them. And it's led to things like the small creditor provision, potentially expanding that provision, our rural treatment, where this is really key to supporting communities by supporting their community banks and credit unions.
And hopefully the consumers of Texas appreciate the CFPB's efforts.
I hope so.